This is the place for boomers, Boomer Being, with your host, Leslie Neumer.
Welcome, I'm Leslie Neumer with 95.9 WATD-FM. Today we'll be talking about market trends in the new year. My expert guest is Bill Harris, certified financial planning practitioner and owner of WH Cornerstone of Duxbury. Welcome back, Bill.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to see you.
And you as well. Well, would you describe for our listeners where you believe we are right now in terms of the economy and the climate for financial planners?
So it's a little bit of a crazy market right now. We have a new administration. And so depending upon where you are on the spectrum, I do see a lot of people becoming really concerned. And then I see other people who are optimistic. So we have this kind of split opinion of what's going on in the markets. But if we look back over 2024, and we're in earnings season right now, the U.S. economy is doing very well. In fact, we had 97% of the companies that have reported their earnings have beat their earnings. We had an estimate of an 11% growth in earnings. We actually had an 18% growth. So the numbers are pretty good. Now, a lot of companies are coming out now because of the threat of tariffs and kind of warning that there's some unknowns out there. But so far, so good. The economy has been pretty strong.
Well, very glad to hear that. So how should we be preparing our financial portfolio? Are there general rules of thumb?
So in a change of administration, I would not make any changes. You should have an asset allocation. You should stick to it. You should stick to your plan. Administrations come and go, and I just would not worry about it long term. American companies just find ways to adapt, innovate, and grow. I'm just going to make up an example. If you're a company that needs widgets from Mexico and it gets hit with a tariff, you may go find another supplier. So these things are going to work themselves out. And again, American companies are going to find a way to overcome any of this. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. I do think the first half of the year is going to be very volatile as we get accustomed to what the new policies and procedures are. I like to say Trump is predictably unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. And I wouldn't get worried about what's going to happen until things are actually passed. We also have a Congress, and I mean both the House and the Senate, that is split right down the middle, and it's going to be very difficult to get things done. So I would expect Washington not to do much. I'd expect a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to pretty much remain the same.
And what are some pointers you can leave our listeners with?
What kind of pointers would you like?
Well, the first one was good about not to have a knee-jerk reaction to a new administration.
Yeah. So I want to stress, stick to your plan. Do not veer off that plan. I think, your asset allocation is going to really determine how your assets perform. And I just really wouldn't change that going forward. And when I say asset allocation, I mean a mix of equity investments, which are stocks, and fixed income investments. Fixed income is a great, I'll call it a life preserver. If the boat goes down, you're not going to sink to the bottom, but you're going to get wet. But when we pick those safe investments, inflation can really harm them because you're in a fixed rate environment. If inflation's going up, you're really losing purchasing power. Inflation's a real issue. I like to call it right now, it's kind of like gum on your shoe. Imagine that hot day, you're walking down the street, you step on the gum, it sticks to your foot, you can't get it off. Inflation's just not going away. And so, the recent readings we just had for January, it's still a problem. And so it's above the Fed target. So it's still an issue. So you need to grow your money. And one of the ways to do that is by having equity exposure. So I think people need to stick to their asset allocation. And again, I wanted to keep hopping. Do not get caught up in current events and make knee-jerk reactions around this.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. The new year is a wonderful time to start working with a financial professional, and listeners can learn more by reaching out to Bill at whcornerstone.com. And thanks for joining us today on the Boomer
Thank you for
Being
having
Show.
me, and great to see you.
And you as well, Bill.
This has been Boomer Being on WATD.